Hello and welcome to the Art of Transformation. I'm your host, Mark Sheff, and today we go on another exciting adventure to the deep inner world of yourself, mostly. I'm working on my intro, but today I got to talk to someone who's been a really big influence in my life. So if you follow me or if you know me on other platforms, you know that I love my jiu-jitsu practice. And during COVID, obviously, this was not a thing that I was able to do. I wanted to keep my family safe, and I was staying off the mats. Enter Cody Christensen. Cody put together a small group of people and managed to get us in the practice, and staying in the practice taught me so much that I've now used to improve my game, improve my life. Cody just received his black belt, and I was very honored to attend that ceremony. So I'll say more at the beginning of the episode about exactly how much this means to me. And we had a really interesting conversation about the difference between practice and pursuit and what that means to him and what that might mean for you. So have a listen and see what we get to on the other side. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Art of Transformation podcast. I'm here with, I always say special guest, but this guest is actually pretty special to me. And before he introduces himself, I want to say that this is a guy who I reconnected with, met during COVID. And if you know me at all or follow me anywhere, you know how much I love jiu-jitsu. And COVID was a time when I wasn't really about to be rolling around with a bunch of people with our masks off. And so Cody put together a small group of people and this is when he was a brown belt, and really gave us a gift of jiu-jitsu. And it was, 5 or 6, sometimes, 2 or 3 of us just getting together once or twice a week. And we can get into this, but it really saved my mental health during a very difficult time. So I want to thank you and acknowledge you and welcome you to the show.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Mark. I'm really psyched to get the opportunity to chat with you today. And yeah, man, it's like coming out of this few years post-pandemic, let's say, it's like at this time I can finally start to kind of reflect back on it in a positive sense. For a long time, it was just like, I don't even want to think about it. Just like, thank God it's gone. But like, I also had my second son born March 20th of 2020. So like the
Yeah,
week,
I
the
remember.
the thick of it. So like there was a period of no jujitsu at all, and then it was really just it was such an incredible time to get together with all you guys. And I feel like you got, in jujitsu, it's like tribal by nature and stuff. But I feel like that group of people, like holds a real special place in my heart. And I think of you guys as like my closest training partners, even to this day, even if I don't get to see you guys all that often, some more than others, like Thayer and stuff. But
Sure, yeah.
yeah, and like, so the last time I saw Mark was I just achieved my black belt after 16 years of training, off and on, and I was honored to have Mark be there for that,
Amazing experience to.
and the amount of transformations that I went through on that journey is incredible. Like as I started to think about this podcast and like what it means and what I'd like to speak about is just like that was monumentous, and I'm still just riding the positive energy of that moment, and
It's
allowing
a huge
myself to do so.
Yeah, it's a huge achievement. It's a huge, I mean, anyone who knows anything about, I mean, even if you don't know anything about martial arts, like, that black belt is like, it's a big deal. And it's a big deal, not just in terms of like, okay, you're a badass now, but like it, it represents many years and so much dedication and so much consistency. And, I bring up the COVID thing in part because, and you even mentioned like, you also had a kid. So here's a time when this thing that you do that is important to you for various reasons that I'd love to get into, is kind of gone from your life or is taken away from your life by circumstance, by, a pandemic. And yet, you found your way back to it in kind of a new way. And then of course that evolved when, things started to lift and you're back at a regular gym. But you mentioned like there were so many transformations along the way. I love thinking about how jujitsu is life. Like it's a metaphor. Like everything that we do is such a metaphor for almost everything we do anywhere else. But I'd
Yeah.
actually like to hear about some of those transformations for you along the journey, because we're all
Mhm.
on journeys, whether it's jujitsu or art or business or whatever. We're all on these journeys. But tell us about, I mean, start anywhere you like. I'd love to hear about some of these transformations.
Sure, sure. So like, okay, I'm gonna maybe like start at the end and then work backwards somewhat. Is like so. Okay, the largest one is like I often would quote on the podcast that I did, which was about the crazy strongman act of steel bending and other old school strength feats, which is what I was doing while I could not do jujitsu. I was occupying myself other ways, and given my punk rock DIY work ethic, I just decided to start the podcast about steel bending. But oftentimes on that podcast, I would quote Musashi from the Book of Five Rings, and it's it. If you know the way broadly, you will see it in everything. Okay, so
Mm,
most of my jujitsu career, I thought that meant, or what it meant to me, was like to get good at something, you have to be utterly obsessed with it. Okay, and it has to be like almost the idea of like to think about stuff outside of that thing that you're pursuing. You almost like need to like physically remove it from your brain. Okay, and I've done this with weightlifting and the strongman stuff, and I think back, I did it with skateboarding as a kid too, but and that is a surefire way to excel at things, and
that
to just
obsession, that
be,
obsessive.
yeah, to just be so devoted and so dialed in that it's like you're literally like quite literally in my case like falling asleep watching jujitsu videos and the whole thing. So let's talk about post black belt now, which has only been a couple months, but like as that belt got tied around my waist, like my perspective really did change. And it's like, and this is like what I tell my son who's like totally motivated and like in love with soccer is I don't think it needs to be an obsession. Like I don't
Mm,
think because obsession is sort of like tied to like a negative thing. So like what I actually think it needs to be is like something that is just truly adored, right? Like I just
mm,
love jujitsu. I love it so much. Okay? And it's not because I can like beat people up and all like it's all that stuff like it's all thrown by the wayside. Like I just love the people that I'm around and that I get to like play with my friends. Like that's what it is, and that I'm healthy enough to do so. And like, so it's like my perspective of this like pursuit as I rounded out this monumental goal, like it just changed. And it's like when I really think about it, like the reasons why I skateboarded and stuff like that, it's just like because I just love it. I just love to do it, And like my expectations, like weren't always like I wanted to be the best skateboarder, and it wasn't like I need to get to this level. It's just like it was this daily practice that I did because I just liked the way it made me feel, and that's kind of
mm.
like where I'm at with jujitsu right now is just like, and it feels really good, and it kind of feels like the way I feel like it should feel, like if that makes any sense, is like I just roll up to training and I'm just like, cool, man. Like, let's just train. Like, I've stopped all the negative voices in my head that are like, you're the worst person on the mat. Um, and all that stuff, man. It's like, I just feel like free of that. And it's just like, I'm just going into this new phase of jujitsu, just like appreciating that I get to do it and all the connections that I've made through it.
Do you feel like talking about that inner critic voice, right? Like
Hmm.
we talk about that a lot in the world of creativity, in the world of business and entrepreneurship. Like,
Yeah.
do you feel like you have to? And this is a little bit of a leading question, but like, do you feel
Hmm.
like you have to get that goal before you can start to quiet that voice, or is there another approach?
Um, I think maybe like sometime in the trenches with that voice might have some utility, but I'm not sold on that necessarily. I'd have to like, like run an experiment or something. What I think of it is like I'm sort of like thinking practice versus pursuit. That's like how I'm segmenting it in my mind. It's
Mm-hmm,
like
hmm.
so my dad is a musician and a songwriter. Okay, so like music and playing guitar and other instruments is been part of my life since I don't like I've had a guitar in my hands since I was born. Okay. So like, and it's not even something I talk about really, but it's like it's something I do every
I
day.
don't think I knew if you played. I didn't know that you played guitar.
Yeah. This is what's kind of funny about it is like it's this daily practice that I do that I don't have any expectations anymore. I've just simply done it my whole life. It's like if I was like disciplined and actually stretched or something. Like like I
People
just
ask me. I'm turning 48 this month,
yeah.
and people ask me. They're like, what advice would you give, a younger version, or or anybody at a younger age? And
Hmm.
my answer always is stretch.
Yeah.
I know you're 25 and you're made of rubber, and that's fantastic. But if you stretch now and you do that consistently now, like you're gonna feel better than every other 48-year-old when you get there, because I
Yeah.
do that
Yeah.
enough.
Agreed. I just have this funny bucket this funny retirement list, and I just put all the things that I am a pretty disciplined guy, but there's some things that I just like push off and can't be disciplined with. So like my yoga practice, that's on the retirement list. So
The things to do when things slow down.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. Um,
I love that idea of practice versus pursuit. I mean, I think about that a lot, in terms of my practice too, and it's a place that I'm sort of trying to be in, at least.
mhm,
Um, and something that comes up a lot, yeah, obviously in jiu-jitsu, but in other areas, like when I'm working with people who are about to go into maybe sort of doing a new thing. There's the idea of beginner's mind, which we could talk about, but
mhm,
something that I've gotten to, and I'm one stripe purple belt, and I've gotten to a point where, like, I no longer feel, there's always like a little bit of fear, which I think is good. Like when you walk in the gym, there's always a little, like, you could get hurt, like, you could be going up against somebody who's like much better than you, like that's always possible.
mhm,
So there's always like that good edge of fear, but um at some point, the courage that I needed to keep walking in the gym, like the courage I needed to walk in with you guys, who I didn't know that well, on
mhm,
day one in the middle of COVID. And
mhm,
there's fear of, obviously, getting COVID. We were all
mhm.
vaccinated, which is great. Um, but every day there's like a little bit of that fear, so you need a little bit of that courage. And over time, I think what you just described is, like, if you do that enough, if you just show up enough, there's a feeling of kind of just pure confidence that you have, not arrogance, not I'm gonna absolutely, like, I know what the outcome's gonna be,
Mhm.
but confidence that you can show up and that you will survive the experience in whatever way. Like,
Yeah.
maybe you'll be a complete train wreck on the guitar that day, but you showed up and you've done that enough and been a train wreck enough that, like, it doesn't really show up as fear anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, like sort of comparing the two things, guitar and jujitsu in my life. What, at this point I've done both of them for quite a long time, but guitar by an additional 22 years or something like that, because I really do not remember a time that I wasn't playing. So somewhere along the lines I realized like um it just relaxes me to pick up a guitar and like
Mm.
and to pluck some chords, at the end of the night. And it's something that I can do, like my kids enjoy it and stuff like that. And it's kind of just like part of the family culture, just the same way as it was for me growing up. Like my dad was always sitting around playing guitar, and I can remember being a little kid and covering up the strings just like my sons have done, and getting a kick out of throwing the pick in the body of the guitar and all of that. So it's just like this practice, and that's sort of the way that I've introduced jujitsu to the kids as well. Is just like no pressure whatsoever, but it's like I just show like how much joy that I'm having doing it, and they both have a lot of interest with it. And that might ebb and flow, and that's totally cool for me. Like it's like, but it's the opportunity for them is always open to train it. The littler one's just kind of training at home, but the bigger one comes with me.
Yeah, I've rolled with your older son a few times.
Yeah. And it's like I don't know if like getting to like a practice mindset, like a daily practice mindset is like a could be like aligned with mastery of something, but like that's kind of an interesting thing to think about is like like you're no longer on the pursuit of it, you're just like in the like the like what's the word? Like serenity of just like being involved with it, you know?
Yeah, I think no, I think you're right, and I think about maybe I'll even post this. What are the 32 principles of jujitsu, the Gracie book.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
I think it's 32 principles of jujitsu and like business and life or something. It's like they're like it's everything. But I
Yeah.
made actually a poster for myself, and the idea of master it does align for me. I mean, I don't get that the master is really pursuing something. They're just pursuing in a way sort of themselves.
Yeah.
Um, and with that idea of the practice being the goal, the
Hmm.
goal is just to be in the practice, to be fully
Right.
present, is to show up, is to like that, to be in this playful. um what it's making me think about is like, okay, so what happens when things get in the way? What happens when you get injured? What happens when COVID hits? Then you have a
Yeah.
baby and you're not doing it. How does I imagine that being in the practice mindset is something that may be beneficial to getting through that time, as opposed to if you're in the pursuit and suddenly your all your expectations and timelines are derailed, and it can be very debilitating. Like
Hmm.
what do you think being in the practice mindset does for getting around, and have you faced any obstacles other than the ones that you mentioned?
Yeah, so kind of like two different times come to mind is one, yeah, the pandemic, and that was just a straight up pivot. And that was like where I was very much still in what we're calling the pursuit mindset, was just like, I'm going to get as strong as humanly possible so I can beat up people better when I return to jujitsu. That's all it was just like, in a couple weeks when this all blows over, I'm gonna be 3 weeks stronger, which turned into a couple
For
years and
people who
so
are
on.
watching or listening, Cody, you have to send me at least a link to like one of the videos. Like when he's talking strong, he's talking about taking steel, like Superman shit, like taking steel bars and bending them. You taught me, which I now forget, and I need you to teach me again, how to rip a deck of cards in half or like a phone book in half. Like I've watched
Yeah.
you do it, and it's like insane to see.
Yeah.
But that you moved into a pursuit mindset, and I'm curious about how that align, like how that
Yeah.
relates
Well, I
to
think I
practice.
was already in the pursuit mindset because I was a fresh brown belt. Like my dedication to the pursuit of black belt was like unwavering. Let's say, like I would have died like trying to achieve that. Like this is I was so intense about that goal that like I'm really trying to lean into the easygoingness of like and balance out the scales a little bit because my family was really, really understanding of what I needed to do to achieve that goal, and I'm trying to reciprocate some of that now with a little bit less militant attitude to the amount I need to train, let's say. Um, but yeah, so going back to when things got put on pause for the pandemic was just I was very much in the pursuit mindset. So when I started weight training and got into the strongman stuff, it was all with the agenda to return to the mat stronger and more efficient in jujitsu. And there was little glimpses of sort of leaning into the practice mindset in there because I really did develop a true love and passion for lifting weights, and I still do it and get a lot of get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
Yeah,
Um, but all of that was goal and agenda based. I pretty much got as strong as I could and started competing in at home grip contests
yeah.
and then graduated into competing in other strongman and powerlifting type events and had success there. But this was all because I was
Not training.
not training and I had a lot of energy, a lot of it negative because I couldn't do this thing I loved so much. So it was just like I was not playing around. I was like taking what I thought was the way, which was just be obsessed, and funneling that into being really, really strong and putting on
Would you do
muscle
it
and
any
stuff.
other? Would you do it any other way? Like, would you? I know some people. I mean, there's probably people listening who are like, "That's great, but I don't want to be obsessed, or I can't be obsessed." Like I go to a gym. I go every morning.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of there happens to be a lot of parents, dads, moms in my gym because the 9:30 time is like right after school drop off. It's like
Hmm.
perfect. Um, and not everyone can go as often as they maybe
Yeah.
want and need to go to progress through to the pursuit as
Yep.
quickly as as they want. I'm there every morning, but not everybody is, and even that isn't enough to like, I'm not getting my black belt tomorrow or even in the next couple of years. Like even if I was going at that, what feels like a little bit, to some like a breakneck speed. And then of course there's folks who are like, no, I have other responsibilities. My job, I can only do 2 days with my job, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, do you have to be like, can you take that obsession and with a different perspective over time? Like, does it have to be an obsession and fast?
No, yeah, so that's kind of like it brings me to the second example, like where I pulled my hamstring really, really badly last winter. And this is, I'm back to normal training at a gym where I get
You
all
were close
the
to black
competitive
belt,
rounds.
right? Like you were
What's
you
that?
were you were close to, like, if it was last winter, that means you were close to black belt.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So I had already had a couple years of like the type of training that I want, really hard training and all this stuff. And like, so then I hurt my hamstring, so I couldn't even really, I hurt it so bad. I was so surprised it was only a strain because of how debilitating it was. But I hurt it so bad that I couldn't even do upper body weightlifting, right? So I was like, okay, I'm off the mat. But I just couldn't tense my body the way I need to lift weights. So I was kind of left with like, okay, physical things are out the window. It's the middle of February. I can't go outside, or like it's like dreary. The outside
Yeah.
stuff is limited. So I just bought canvases and started painting a bunch. And it's like painting is never a thing that I enjoyed as a kid. I've always drawn, and the reason I liked to draw was that I could sit down and draw a picture, and it could be complete in the duration that I would like. And I just didn't have the patience to paint as a kid, right? So, but then revisiting this due to this injury was like it was a real beautiful thing as a family man and stuff. Was just like, okay, I'm gonna set my little easel up in my office, and I'm going to do a little bit, and then I'm going to be pulled away for work or family stuff or whatever. And then, this is, we're talking like 5-10 minutes at a time, and then maybe 20
Yeah.
minutes at night. And I'm going to do a little bit, and that gives me that positive escape that I just need as a person, which has been fulfilled in negative ways when I was younger. But I need these like healthy escapes
Yeah.
where I'm sort of dialed into this thing. And I got really into recording music at that time. So basically, but these were things that I didn't have an agenda with. This is how I matured post pandemic near to black belt, sort of. These were kind of just daily practice kind of things. Like this, like I had moved through the pursuit thing, and I approached these things in just a more playful manner, where it was like I wasn't
Mm,
gonna, yeah, I don't know, start trying to sell these paintings, or like it was just like some form of expression that took me out of my own crazy mind, at
mm,
5 to 20 minutes at a clip. And then the recording was just something I had never really like learned how to use much recording software. So I taught myself GarageBand and started doing little home recordings with the kids and stuff, and they just got a
yeah.
kick out of it. And it was just like, okay, I'm gonna just I have this time. I can't really be physical, which is like my go-to to usually like uh give myself that little mental break. So I had to
Hmm.
just dial it into some other means of creativity.
That's really, and I didn't know that actually, that you had done that, and it makes so much sense. Like I talk about this with my groups and my clients too. Like creativity isn't about. I don't think creativity is about making physical visual art or music or dance, but it is all of these things. And
Hmm.
I think that jujitsu is fundamentally an incredibly creative activity. And so is creating, a new business, or
Hmm.
creating, if you're like creating videos and you're an influencer. Like these are all acts of creation. And like when you're in jujitsu, obviously, like you're creating all the time. Like you're facing somebody, who's kind of throwing whatever they're throwing at you, and you have to create a response, all the time when you're rolling with someone. um, it's interesting that you replaced these physical activities with creativity, because I think the thing that they both get you to is a state of flow.
Hmm.
Is
100%.
like you said, that mental break, that moment where you're not thinking of it. That's what I mean, it's one of the things that I say I love about jujitsu. I don't have my phone. No one can interrupt me. I have to focus on what's in front of me, whether it's the coach or my training partner. And it feels, whatever I come in with, whatever's like kind of coming at me, whether it's my own inner critic or people needing me or my family or whatever, I get to put it down.
Hmm.
And if it's for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour on the mat, it's giving yourself, I just really love that you gave yourself that time and committed even just to trying it out as a way of getting that mental space to almost like let some of those things go. I mean, did you find, what were sort of the results that you found in your life from replacing this physical activity with a sort of more quote unquote creative one?
Yeah, I would say like it scratched the itch, but like didn't totally like take care of it entirely. It was enough to bridge the gap. And then, a couple weeks went by and then I could get into the lifting and stuff like that. That it just the physical challenge is really what gets me to a place that is that sort of let's see, like satisfies my addictive mind. The creative stuff, it helps like buffer it, so I'm just not like a psycho to like to be
Yeah.
around. And we'll see. I don't know, like like maybe with this like newfound maturation coming off of the black belt, like we'll see the next injury how I handle it. I'd like to think that I handle it a little better. But yeah, it's and as you were saying, like all these things are art, right? It's like, I think of it as skateboarding, right? Skateboarding, you could try to like cram it into a box and call it a sport, but it's not really like it's like the whole thing is so subjective, and like why someone doing a kickflip is way cooler than another person doing a kickflip. Scientifically, it's the same move, but you can do it with so much style and make it look so good. And then even someone that does a bad one can be cool because they're stylish, So like, and that's kind of the way I think about jujitsu. Like it, like literally, quite literally, I have it tattooed on my arm now. Is It's the gentle art, which is like the dichotomy of that is like so funny because it's so far from gentle. But um, is the more creative I can be on the mat, the better I do. Really,
Yeah,
um, the more playful I can be, the better I do. That's me personally because I think I am like an artistic person at heart. Other people have a lot that have success being like true scientists, or like approaching it from a less creative, less playful way. But that's how I have my most success on the mat is like when I can be playful and creative, like a and I think that's kind of like the through line with all of this stuff we're talking about.
I like that. I like that you keep bringing up that sense of play, and I know when you're starting out jujitsu or anything, it's hard to feel comfortable enough to really feel playful necessarily. Like you could imagine like your first. I had a good friend of mine who just joined our gym. He's been talking about it
Nice.
for years. I finally got him to come in. He's got his like white bathroom. It's like the starter gi or whatever. Um, and it's funny because he's a former wrestler, high school wrestler. We're about the same. He's in his early 40s, and he's just hanging on for dear life.
Yeah.
There's not enough even knowing like what to do that he can be comfortable enough yet. And if you're listening, buddy, I love you, and that that this is coming from a good place. But he's just like, there's not a place. He's actually, what's interesting about him is that he is coming in with a remarkable sense of play. There's other white belts who come in who are just like, that hanging on for dear life
Hmm.
kind of thing. He's got a really great mindset about it, and maybe it's because he's a dad and he is actually a painter among other things.
Awesome.
Um, but but yeah, there's a sense there getting to that sense of play. I feel like that's something that I'm sort of constantly working towards. Like I just want it to be fun. Like I see people come in with a lot of intensity and like really like folk like there's a few folks I've trained with in the past who are like, you can just tell they want to win.
Hmm.
Like that's the thing that they want to get today. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, there's 1,000 things that happen in this room. Winning is one of them.
Yeah.
um, learning is another. Finding all these different paths, making connections with other people. Like there's so much that can happen here if you're just, this is back to practice and pursuit, right? Like if I'm just focused on, okay, I got to get my hours in and I got to learn these moves, and like
Hmm.
you're almost not in the present moment, and you're almost robbing yourself of that experience of being in the
Yeah.
flow if you're and not to critique at all, but if you're obsessed in that way where you're just totally like unable to be in the experience. But
Hmm.
but I also know you, and I got to train with you, and I always felt that sense of play with you. When you were
Hmm.
showing us all of the stuff that you showed us, during the time that we trained together, there was always a sense of like, this can be fun. Like this is
Right.
let's try this fun thing. Let's play around with it. Let's bring in boxing gloves and see what that does. Like you always brought in like
Hmm.
really interesting stuff for us to work. And I think that sense of I admire that sense of play, and I'm glad to hear that that's more focus. Is that what would you say to somebody who's either considering starting out, whether it's jujitsu or just any pursuit, because you've got so many different, and as you go along the way, like what advice would you want to give to somebody who is maybe struggling to find that
Well, I think like the battle is like if you take kids, right, and you're looking at them while they play, do you think they have an inner voice that's like, you're so bad at this. Stop.
right?
Right? They
At a
don't.
certain age they start to get that voice, but yeah, like little
Yeah.
kids that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like the more you can like shift, and like there's obviously this is a spectrum, and I've always kind of felt like my inner voice is on the severe end of like a some type of like a really evil being that's like just looking to punish me or something. But
You should make a painting of your inner voice.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I might have it tattooed on me.
Okay.
uh some scary reapers and stuff. But so I think like learning to shift that, right? So it's not like being hypercritical all the time, so you can flow and play a little more. And then also just allowing yourself to be not good at it and have that be okay, 100% okay, right?
Mhm.
Like as I mentioned in the speech when I got my black belt, was like, I'm so grateful for um that ability, right? It's like sometimes you learn a move, and even like all the years I have, right? It's like I'll learn something and it just does not feel right to me. So when I execute it, it looks like insane, and I have no, like at this point, I just laugh, like there's certain like drop seoinage, like a judo throw where you drop to your knees and you're turning backward and you throw them over your shoulder. Like I could have such a fail highlight of me trying to attempt that move. It would be like hilarious and have like, 1 million views on YouTube because it would be so pitiful. But like I'm not caught up in like how poorly I do drop seoinage. Like I'm just like laugh it off, Like, and I think like if you can both build confidence with like just allowing yourself to be bad at something when you start, and then also like trying to shift that inner voice to be less critical, to instead of something that changed along the way was like, all right, if someone beats me up on the mat, instead of me go driving home being like, you are so bad, you are so bad at this, like why do you even do this, you're so bad, somewhere along the line, and thank goodness, it switched to be like, you know what, that person's really good. That person is
Yeah.
just really good at jujitsu. Like, and then that would be validated by other people that I respect and think are good, being like, yeah, that person's really tough,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like, instead of me just being like all about me, myself, it's like, you ever hear that thing that's like, I don't think much of myself, but I'm all I think about?
Yeah, I have not heard that. That's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny.
So,
Raf, who teaches in Kingston.
oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember I think I did like a private lesson with him, and we were sort of talking about something. I forget exactly how it came up, but he said something to me that I think I may never forget. There's another. Yeah, I think he's still a purple belt. He may have his brown by now. This guy Brian, and he said to me, he's like, yeah, well, Brian's better than you at jujitsu, and he's going to be better than you for a long time. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, like if he's better than me now and we're both training consistently, like he's gonna stay better than me. And
Hmm.
so this kind of inner critic of like, oh, you're not as good as him. Like it's like, oh, well, that's fine. I'm on my own journey right now. I'm not on
Yeah.
his journey. Like he started years before me, or whatever it was that has him be better. That's just where he is. And this is
Hmm.
where this is where I get to be. And again, it's about kind of not driving home being like that was crappy. It's like, driving home and just sort of examining what you want to do next.
Yep.
um Last question here, because I'm looking at the clock, and man, the time just flew by. But this is a new question that I'm asking guests. But what advice do you want to give yourself for the next year in your jujitsu journey or your life journey?
Okay. Good question. I like that for sure. So the advice I would give myself is to keep up with what I'm doing now, which is like keeping that nasty inner voice out of my head, allowing me to feel like allowing me to lean into the accomplishment of getting the black belt, not getting sucked up into what that means via comparison.
Mm.
Um, and to continue to like lean into the play aspect of it. And also, it honestly took like the pandemic for me to realize that how much I appreciate the camaraderie of jujitsu. Pre-pandemic, I was like, "Pfft, I got my friends from childhood, from skateboarding, from punk and hardcore shows and whatever else. I don't need any new friends from this thing." Like, and it's not that I would be nasty, but it was just like I really didn't like value
Yeah.
the short little conversations, or I just wasn't in tune with how much I did value it, you know? And then coming out of the pandemic and going back was just like, man, I love just like talking to all these people. Like I just love like, hey man, how you doing? And it might not even like be, sometimes I don't even know their first name. I feel bad, but it's like as but I just like feel like I know them because we do this thing that requires so much trust.
Yeah.
And I realized like, oh man, that does so much for me. It's just like checking in with all these people. Oh, but hey man, how you doing? Like um so yeah, continuing to lean into like the fellowship of jujitsu. Um and yeah, just being as creative and as playful as I can. And then as in the near future, when I open my own space, to really foster that, to like for
Mm.
your friend who's new and not able to really maybe tap into the play aspect of it, to structure the training in a way where they almost have no choice
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
to be silly and to take all the if they have tunnel vision to the pursuit, we're gonna just mix it up to a way that it's fun. Just like when I was injured and I was painting, as soon as I got into a mindset where I was like, this is like not the way I wanted it to look, but I try to be as punk rock as I could, and I would just like take it to a whole different direction, and I would make myself like I would not let myself fall into like that weird expectation, like inner critic bullshit.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. Something I've done. A lot of the work I do is around with clients is around the inner critic. I'll offer this in response. It's just that this was something that my coach gave me, and really really helped me shift my view on the inner critic. And maybe this is helpful, which is that the inner critic is you. There's just it's you. I mean, if you are actually hearing voices that you don't feel like are you, you should see someone, and that's dangerous. And I don't say that lightly, but like, the inner critic is this thing that we all have, um, and fundamentally it has a good intention. It wants you to be safe. Problem is, it operates out of
Hmm.
fear of looking bad, of looking like an idiot, of hurting you, like, whatever. So the inner critic is the one that's always like, no, just stay home, just do the comfortable thing, don't, you don't have to go again this week, like you went once, let's just cool it out. Like, it's actually trying to be your friend in a way, which is weird to think about, because it's giving you all this advice that's kind of holding you back, and it's telling you like, you look so stupid and you're an idiot. But when I realized that this voice was really like was just sort of afraid for me and wanted to help me, it was like a little bit easier to sort of notice and acknowledge when it was there, and going, okay, well, this is actually just an indicator of maybe
Mm,
where I do need to go. It's like afraid. I mean, so like the inner critic also doesn't want me to walk into traffic. I'm going to listen in certain cases.
yeah,
But like, should I go to jujitsu? I'm like, you know what? I have facts to back up that this is actually going to be okay, and I'm just going to
yeah.
reassure that voice and kind of try to move through with some courage.
I like that. It's almost like reframing, like it's like a maturation of your relationship with it, because I'm at this place where now it's just like I've identified it as like trying
Yeah.
to sabotage me, and so I have to like balance it out with like sweetness. But
Yeah.
if I change my perspective on it and I just think of it as something that's actually trying to like really look out for me, like a helicopter parent or something, you know,
Totally.
it's like
Totally.
that kind of is a really interesting way to view it. Is it's like trying to keep you like so safe that it's like doesn't want you to like step out and do these things where there could be like a little bit of
Right.
potential rejection or something.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot there. Um, I, I hate to end things because I know we could talk for hours, but if people, I know you're talking about opening up your own place at some point. You know, if people are looking for you, say on social media, sort of follow your journey, where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, so I'm Cody C518 on Instagram. If you I'll if you want to check me out there.
I'll put a link in
Um,
the show note.
Yeah, I train at Gambit Submission Fighting in New Paltz. If you want to check out there what we have going on, I also train at Midtown Jiu-Jitsu in Kingston with my friend Malachi Silva, who just opened up a gym there. So that's a new gym that everybody should check out in the Hudson Valley. And if you want to check out any of the old Strongman episodes I did, that was called Beyond the Bend podcast, where I think I did near to like 100 episodes of interviewing many really super strong people and got really deep into life stuff as well. I think there's some episodes there that people could get a lot out of even if they have no interest in bending steel or anything along those lines.
Awesome. Cody, I so appreciate you making the time today. It's always great to reconnect with you. And I will talk soon. And for everybody who's listening, stay tuned for the post show notes, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you want to participate in these conversations, I encourage you all to join my mailing list. I've been really enjoying sending out a weekly newsletter with personal stories with a little bit of a twist, usually, that are designed to help you take a look at your life and how you might improve it in some way. I love sharing these stories. I've been having some great conversations on there with people who read them and reply to my newsletter. That could be you too. I would love to have you on there, so please go do that when you get a chance. You can do that at coach.markchef.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. Thanks again for listening. If you like and subscribe on various platforms, thank you. If you leave reviews, thank you. And for the rest of you, thank you. And I'll see you all at the next one.